what's your next one you're excited about?
It's a busy week. So tomorrow is Brain Dead, and then I think Thursday is the Vista, and then Friday is the New Bev, and Saturday is the New Bev. So, and then Sunday is the Egyptian. So that's my schedule for this week.
And is that a normal week for you?
But yeah, I do come to these things pretty often.
Welcome to MovieTown, the Los Angeles Revival Cinema Scene show. We are here at the American Cinematheque inside the Los Feliz 3. And this month I'm joined by Jim Branscome, programmer of Cinematic Void here at the American Cinematheque. Thanks so much for joining us.
Absolute pleasure to be here.
How long have you been programming Cinematic Void?
Since 2016, so I'm deep into year 9 right now.
Year 9, okay. Were you programming around LA or doing stuff before that?
No, I had a completely different career trajectory, never thought about doing this. It just kind of thing that just happened.
And how did it happen? Did somebody ask for your opinion about a movie, or like how does that?
It was a combination of things. So I started before I worked for the Cinematheque. I ended up coming in through Beyond Fest. I was helping out doing some video stuff with them, and then I ended up getting a part-time job at the Cinematheque because I was working as a video editor and videographer and wasn't making much money, so I needed something. So I ended up working at the concession stand, and then somehow I magically became the assistant manager and then the manager of the Egyptian Theater. And I was friendly with a lot of the programmers, and occasionally we would just be talking movies or shop, and I would just kind of throw out an idea and then would see it end up being a screening. So I felt pretty confident because I was running the theater pretty good. I just kind of pitched a series, and they said, sure, you can do it, but you can do it in the Little Room, which used to be the Spielberg Theater at the Egyptian that no longer exists. And that's kind of how I got my start.
What is kind of the conceit behind Cinematic Void? What does the series encompass?
It started out, well, it still is. It's shining a light on more cult films and stuff like that. And there was a period where, ended up doing a lot of horror movies because horror movies were very popular and still very popular. But the amount of kind of films that I show now, I show a lot of art house, I show a lot of action movies. I still show horror movies, but it's more expanded, but the main consensus is I call it a cult film odyssey into the mouth of Cinemadness kind of thing.
Okay, cool. And so for April, for this month, is there a unifying theme to these films? So
the theme for April is something called The System Works for Them, which is kind of a political theme. And I started with Dr. Strangelove, Land of the Dead, and Tin Drum, and they all cover politics, but in a very, very different way in different sectors of the world.
I've been going to Cinematic Void screenings since, I guess, 2021, sort of when they restarted after the pandemic. Really just eclectic picks. It's always, they have a pre-show, and sometimes we'll do a fun little skit beforehand. So it's just a really great, comprehensive experience.
How are we doing tonight, Los Angeles 3? And welcome to Cinematic Void. I'm your host, Jim Branscome, and tonight we are watching Herschel Gordon Lewis's Something Weird.
Let's start with Dr. Strangelove. 1964, Kubrick. He's coming off Lolita. This is before 2001. What jumped out to, kind of program something that you wouldn't necessarily consider cult, certainly, but how it fits in this month?
Strangelove is actually one of my all-time favorite movies, and I thought, in a political sense, because it's a movie that took place, it was a book that became a very big, broad comedy that took place during the Cold War. And I think right now, when you look at the climate of American Russia and kind of how vastly different but sort of the same things are parallels, I think Strangelove is a movie that just unfortunately remains timeless for a lot of reasons that it shouldn't, but still does. So I think the political context, I also think it's a cult movie because a lot of people, when they think Kubrick now, people get stuck on 2001. There's a lot of love for Eyes Wide Shut, obviously Clockwork Orange, and The Shining. And I feel like some of the pre-2001 stuff is kind of maybe, I don't want to say lost in the ether. Strangelove's always a classic, but just kind of giving it a different context, because most of the time when people play Strangelove, this is a classic movie. I'm kind of taking it back to more of its weirdly just anarchist ideals of hey, nuclear war can be funny even though it's scary.
Have you seen Doctor Strangelove ever with a crowd?
I have a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I haven't played this movie. It's been a while since I've seen it because one of my cinematic void rules, like there are exceptions, I don't repeat movies. So I think, I have to look at the letterbox, but I think I'm over 400 some different movies I've played. So eventually I'm gonna have to play some like things that might be a little bigger than the scope, but I think if I can put it together in the scope of the bigger picture, I think it just makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I am interested to see it with a crowd because I've only seen it alone, and I do think I bet, and especially just time, like with Russia, U.S. stuff, kind of back in the fore, that the jokes will really kind of snowball. I think a lot.
As funny and as ridiculous it is, it's played completely straight, even though there's several people, much to some of the actors' chagrin for what Kubrick kind of, George C. Scott was kind of unhappy that like every take he used was the one, it's like, just do one that's a little more crazier. So that's everything he used for George C. Scott. But you got Sterling Hayden, who's like terrifying, but completely is in on the joke, but doesn't play like he's in on the joke. With the purity essence and that kind of stuff. And then you have the trio Peter Sellers, and of course you got Slim Pickens just doing the all-timer there.
Yeah, and did you know Peter Sellers was actually supposed to play the Slim Pickens role? And then he was worried about that one with the Texas accent, and then he ended up...
He faked an injury to get out of it.
Yeah.
Do you get out to a lot of the other revival theaters? Like which one?
New Bev pretty frequently. The Vista's pretty close to me as well. Somebody just told me about something going on at Brain Dead on Friday. Go check out some Argento over there, maybe. I'll see anything, old film, new film, whatever.
Jump into the next film, Land of the Dead. This is an interesting one because you think about those first three Romero zombie of the Dead series. So what went into kind of revisiting this one?
I just feel like it's unfortunately aged very well in our political climate. Now, when Land of the Dead came out, we were in the Bush administration, coming out of 9/11 and going to Iraq and looking for weapons of mass destruction. And as much as it became a movie based around that era, I think the way the country and politics have changed, it's kind of like it's kind of more modern now, because if you think about it, dealing with a lot of class war on two fronts. You have the zombies, and then you have all the poor people that are like stuck outside, and you have all the rich people in this nice tower where, and then kind of throwing pittance to like, here, go do our dirty work, and maybe you'll get into the tower. It's like the bullshit idea of trickle-down economics just in the zombie apocalypse kind of thing.
So Land of the Dead 2005, it's 20 years after Day of the Dead. Have you ever read anything about like why Romero wanted to pick it back up? Was it just kind of
I think with George hit a period of his time like when he was trying to get in the studio system and had done some studio movies, and he was like tied with a bunch of things. He was tied to The Mummy for a while at Universal, where he was getting paid but no movie was being made. And then he kind of got out and he did Bruiser, and I think there's maybe a few other things, but like I think because the Dawn of the Dead remake was coming out, it kind of gave him, it's like, here's a remake of one of the greatest zombie movies ever made. Why not a new zombie film from the guy that made one of the greatest zombie movies ever made? It came a little bit a bigger movie because he had like name stars. There's John Leguizamo, there's Dennis Hopper in it, there's Simon Baker, there's Asia Argento. Like he had some names, and K&B, who went on to do all the effects for like The Walking Dead and stuff like that, did the zombie effects, and Craig Nicotero was like, a student of Tom Savini who did the Dawn and, Day of the Dead effects. So it was kind of his chance to do kind of a bigger thing. And I think at the time, maybe that Day of the Dead remake stole a lot of its thunder, but I think in the way things have aged, and I think it's going to play very differently than it did in 2005.
Yeah.
Do you have like a favorite screening you've been to in LA?
I really like the marathon horror movie screenings because everybody there is just in it to win it. It's like 4-6 movies in a row, and you're just sort of mind is mush at the end of it, and it's just good. And like everybody who goes there is like looking for the same sort of mindless thrill.
The final April film in this series, the Tin Drum from 1979, and certainly kind of an acclaimed film of its time. I'm wondering like how you saw that fitting in. And
I mean, it's a movie that takes place during Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
And I also just wanted to show Tin Drum because I genuinely love it. I think it's an incredible movie. I haven't seen it played anywhere. I've never seen it in a theater, so I was like, might as well just give it a try because like it's very interesting in like how it looks at like the occupation or like how Germany basically was falling under Nazi power. Well, you have this little kid who falls down a set of stairs who's like, I'm not going to grow up anymore. And I can also scream and break glass and things like that.
Yeah, I think it's the eccentricities of it that certainly have stuck with me. The like birth scene, you're like coming out the birth canal, and then he's like a toddler when he comes out. He's essentially the same actor.
It kind of plays like, as much as it's an art house movie, it also plays a lot like an exploitation movie because there's what some people might view as problematic elements, especially because he's not growing up and he remains the same size, same age. And it's just a weird, it's a dark comedy in like the best sense of the world. I really enjoy it. I don't know if everyone else is. It is also a long movie, but there's enough weird things in it, and it also has Mario Adolf in it, who's a longtime German character actor who's in a ton of like giallo films and like Eurocrime stuff, and he just pops up in everything. So that's kind of the lineage. It's like a thing I firmly believe, especially in that time period, the 70s, there's a fine line between what people consider art house and grindhouse. I think it's almost non-existent. It's just how you perceive it, how it's marketing. I mean, at the time when the movie was released theatrically, New World Pictures, which was Roger Corman's company, released it in the States.
What's the best thing you've seen recently?
Cinematheque is doing a Noir City Hollywood. They just played one the other night called Roadhouse, which I'd never seen before. Ida Lupino, it was nitrate film. It looked fantastic. Whole big event. It was great. Yeah.
I wonder, now that you've been doing this for 9 years, I feel like the last couple of years we've seen a few new theaters open, micro cinemas. Like, what have you seen kind of change in the LA revival scene?
I think overall is like how popular repertory is in general, and it's not just in LA; it's across the country because I'm friends with programmers like all over like most of the major cities. And post-pandemic, when you could go back to movie theaters, people got really excited about seeing older movies on the big screen. And I think a lot of it has to do with what happened with streaming and curation because you're very limited in what you can see streaming-wise. You're at the algorithm based on whatever particular streamer or what they decide to license for like a 3 to 6 month period that you can watch on a streamer. So when you start seeing movies that most streamers don't worry about or think about, and you can go see it on the big screen, you could sometimes see it on 35 millimeter, you might be able to see it with a guest, like it's a different experience. So a lot of the stuff I show, maybe 85 to 90% of the audience have not seen the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about things that I feel like, oh, everyone's seen it at this point. I just thought I'm just catering to like the more hardcore fans or whatever. Like I guarantee you when I do Strangelove coming up in April, most of that audience has not seen that movie.
Yeah, partly it gets them. I was like, oh, I need to go see that. Like I know the title and they haven't seen it. I know I do that for when I look at the calendar.
Yeah, it's actually like an interesting thing now because also like the cinephile is getting younger.
Yeah.
Where I think pre-pandemic, a lot of cinephiles were like in a certain age bracket and is very limited. And now I think people are just more adventurous about going to see movies in a movie theater.
I'm really interested to talk about the docs and the This Is Not a Fiction because I think it's like such a fantastic pairing. So for that, you're pairing Heavy Metal Parking Lot from 86, I believe, and then Hated, Gigi Allen and the Murder Junkies from 93. And, I think it's an interesting kind of, you've got the metal and then this, maybe the most extreme punk, version of that, like how you thought those go together and how you kind of came to pair them. Well, and I should say Heavy Metal Parking Lot is, a short, so it's like just under 20 minutes, and then Hated is just an hour, so they kind of work together.
I think the total runtime on paper for both things is 69 minutes, which was unintentional, as But Heavy Metal Parking Lot was big to me because I'm originally from the Baltimore, Maryland area, so I have a culture of like John Waters, Blair Witch, and Don Dollar and things like that. And Heavy Metal Parking Lot was something I saw on VHS, and it was shot in Landover, Maryland at the time. A bunch of people going to see Judas Priest and Dokken at a concert at I forget what the stadium is or whatever.
The Capitol Center.
Yeah, it was Capitol Center. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to get yelled at back home for that. But like, and it's weird because it's also on the Turbo Tour for Judas Priest, which was at the time, not very beloved Judas Priest record.
What was them going into, like, trying to get a little into the hair metal scene?
Yeah, it was a little bit of that. But like, you get to see this cross-section of humanity that you didn't know exist. And by cross-section, it's just like drunk metalheads. And like, you don't get anything really insightful, but you get to see how people really are and live, or at least when they have like 10 beers in them or something like that. And for Hate It, when I had talked to the Cinematheque about like doing, because like Cinematheque does a bunch of stuff. We do Bleak Week, there's Beyond Fest, there's I forget what the podcast one is called, but like we do a lot of little mini festivals throughout, and I've been involved with every one except for this one. I was like, hey, let me do a documentary one. And I pitched Heavy Metal Parking Lot, and they were already thinking about Hate It. I was like, that would be a good double.
Yeah.
And I think with Hate It, it's funny when you realize Todd Phillips, the guy who went on to direct Joker, this was his first movie.
Yeah.
And when you think of the latest Joker movie, there's weird parallels if you really think about it.
I was going to bring that up to you, that I thought that it was really interesting to watch this. And I had seen Joker Folie à Deux, a couple months ago. I watched it once it came on video. And there is an element of, you could read it as Todd Phillips kind of being like a performance artist punk in a way. But, what else did you draw between them?
I mean, I think I haven't seen it, to be honest.
Okay.
Like, I haven't seen a superhero movie since 2008. Like, and I saw Iron Man. I saw it with my dad before I moved out here. I was like, that was pretty cool. And then once I moved out here, that's when the whole cycle of things came. And I just like, I'm out. I can't invest like half my life to go back and watch these movies. But like, I think I could see the parallels of just like you take a figure that's like kind of misunderstood, but also does self-destructive things that like makes it, you want to root for them, but you can't because they're doing like, obviously there's no point in the Joker where he's getting naked and throwing feces at people. At least I don't think. You saw it. You could correct me on that.
No, not in the new one.
No, but like, I think when you think of like just weird human beings, like Gigi Allen's just an interesting guy because like he loved music and basically just kind of fell into like drugs and just being like, I'm going to be the most extreme person you're going to meet. And like, if you see any kind of concerts, actually if you watch the documentary, you just see how wild it is.
Yeah. No, the concert footage in the movie, especially the final one at the end is like, I mean, it's as shocking as it can kind of get, and you've even been told what's going to happen, and it's still shocking to like see somebody actually, take a shit on the stage and everything else the guy does. But had you seen that back in the 90s? Or?
I saw it back in the day because, like, when part of my background was like punk rock and hardcore and stuff, and of course, eventually someone's like, "Hey, have you seen Hate It?" So that's how you end up seeing Hate It on like a very beat up VHS because someone has played it a million times, and then like just like, holy shit, I can't believe this guy was this insane. Because like, with that, I think without that documentary, I think it kind of elevated Gigi to a different level. Also him passing away kind of added to it, but like it's a different perspective on punk because like, there's lots of different threads through punk and hardcore, and like Gigi was this guy that like just kind of stood above it because it was performance art in a way. And it was like, it might have been closer to like Frank Zappa, except Zappa didn't do a lot of drugs on stage and get naked.
Yeah. So I wanted to jump through a few other titles I saw. One actually relates to a movie you recently showed, Blue Sunshine, director Jeff Lieberman.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know how familiar you are with his other films, but this month at the Videotheque, at their micro cinema, it's a video store in micro cinema, they're showing Just Before Dawn. his 1981 film. Are you familiar with that one?
I am familiar. Like when I had Jeff was here for that Q&A for Blue
yeah.
Sunshine. I think he might come back later this year. And we're going to do his restoration of Just Before Dawn.
Oh, wow.
Because he's got a new 4K.
Okay, awesome.
Because for a while there's a print of it that was floating around, and like Jeff's one of those directors, he wants you to watch the version.
Yeah, so you probably want people to wait and come see the new restoration, but is that like a fun one for people to go out?
It's
and
like
see?
Jeff will say it's not a slasher, but it came out during the slasher boom, and like
it's
it's like
it's a little more related to like Deliverance thriller.
it's more backwoods, like
yeah.
It's more Hills Have Eyes, backwoods type of.
Like it's hikers lost in Oregon wilderness, and there's crazy guys.
Crazy cannibals or whatever, But I think like, going and seeing it like Videotheque and like a micro cinema is also kind of cool to go see too, because like, I feel like not everyone has the opportunity to screen as a programmer on a big screen. It's a rare privilege regardless, because there's only so many theaters and so many programming slots out there. So when there's micro cinemas where people are taking a chance and showing things that they love, it's actually really cool to be able to do that, or for people to do that, because you get to show your taste and put stuff out there, and you can build an audience, because Videotheque's also a video store. So it kind of like bringing people in to watch something, and they're like, hey, I want to go rent something else from the guy that directed this.
Yeah. And then a couple others before I kind of do a little speed round with you. A couple others that jumped out to me on the calendar. This one is a venue I haven't been at yet. I certainly, I've heard of it, and it's just around the corner from us here in Los Feliz. The Philosophical Research.
I've not been yet.
Society.
I've had plenty of friends go to stuff there. I haven't been to a screening.
And
yet.
they don't just show movies there, which is because I don't really. I've seen I've noticed concerts and other things there, but they show movies pretty often, like a few a week. And this one is actually this is part of Karina Longworth, the writer and podcaster. She does You Remember This, and her most recent series is, I think it's called The Old Man. It looks at kind of famous kind of 50s, 60s directors when they were kind of trying to, make a big swing and kind of hold out. And so this one is a Stanley Donen movie that I've always been interested in, but never seen, from 1978, Movie. Do you know this one?
I know the title. I don't think I've ever actually seen it.
I think I probably have the same reaction of why I'm interested in it as probably a lot of people do, because Tarantino's Grindhouse with Robert Rodriguez seems to like follow this movie's kind of script in terms of it's a double feature of two separate films, like genre films, that he wanted to play around. So one is like a boxing drama and uses the same cast. So the first film is Dynamite Hands, this boxing melodrama, and then the second one is Baxter's Beauties of 1933. Obviously, like to like Busby Berkeley,
doing like
Gold Diggers series. But so this one is April 9th, and I think but Karina Longworth does like an intro and maybe a Q&A afterwards.
Yeah, because we had her here when she was doing the erotic thrillers series. She was either introing or doing pre-tape intros and stuff like that. But it's also cool she goes around town and does other things. I think she's at Videos for some of them, and I don't know what her full schedule is, but I know she's gone around and kind of spread the wealth with whatever podcast whatever season of podcast she's doing, I should say.
So that one jumped out. I'm going to try to make that one. Here's this one. I think I know it's being programmed because Bong Joon Ho has a new movie out, and so at the Academy Museum they're kind of going through a lot of his filmography, and so this one is my favorite of his movies. I'll be interested to kind of get your opinion. From 2003, Memories of Murder.
I haven't seen that in forever. I actually saw that when it played originally theatrically when I was still in Maryland. And like it's been a while. I think it's a great movie. I think he's a great filmmaker. I haven't seen the new one yet, but like I did hear that he's got a horror movie next, and he kind of like hit up John Carpenter to do a score when they were doing that Q&A at the Academy.
I mean, this film for me, it's probably one of the best movies of like the 2000s of the last 25 years. And and it stars the same actor he's worked with a lot, Song Kang-ho from The Host and Parasite. And he's just such a great presence. And it's a serial killer movie set in a small country town in South Korea. Very dark, rainy kind of serial killer, but like very full of life, like not much different tone and feel than like Seven or something that I think it does draw comparisons to because of kind of the palette and darkness and just serial killer at that time. And it's only Bong Joon Ho's second feature, which I think is really striking too.
I think he's had so far he's had a really great career because
Yeah.
he likes to kind of mix it up and like not just do the one thing and like kind of push and stuff. Because if you go to The Host, which is a big monster movie and a really cool one that was coming out at a time when not many people were doing it. So, I mean, he's got a lot of interesting ideas, and it's kind of great that like world cinema has grown enough that like he gets to kind of make bigger movies and more opportunities.
Yeah.
What gets you to like come out and see something in the theater versus streaming or renting, disc, whatever?
I definitely think about the rarity of the format of which it'll be screening at as well. Like the Video Archives Micro Cinema at the Vista, I love to see something on 16 millimeter there. That's always enticing, I would say.
Okay, so a big format person.
Yeah.
Okay, this I want to do now. We'll do a little bit more of a speed round.
Okay.
And so for this, I've got like 2 or 3 movies that kind of relate, and I want to see if one jumps out to you as, oh yeah, go see that one, or no, maybe skip those.
Yeah.
So this is at Videotheque this April. 2 movies from 2014. So it's not it's kind of recent enough. But they're showing Wild Tales, the Argentinian. It's 6 short films, sort of crazy, a bit unhinged. It was actually nominated for Best Foreign Film Oscar that year. And then the other one is Inherent Vice, the Paul Thomas Anderson adaptation of the Pynchon novel that, so I'm interested whether either of those strike you as like ones you would want to go see or recommend.
I mean, I've seen Inherent Vice. I haven't seen the other one.
Oh, okay.
But I would say go see the other one because I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I think that's the best thing. It's like
Yeah.
Inherent Vice, like no disrespect to Paul Thomas Anderson, but like it plays a lot around town. So
Yeah.
I think the thing is more exciting when you take chances on things. Probably a lot of people haven't seen it.
Yeah,
so.
no, I feel like it's gotten lost a little bit in like, is it really easy like win recommendation? Like this is a really fun movie that I don't think would disappoint many people who go to like repertory revival stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the balance when you do repertory anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, you can play the hits, but you got to be careful not to play nothing but hits.
This is an interesting, I haven't been out to one of these, but I really want to get to, because there's a few places that do this, is like a silent movie with live accompaniment.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first one is at the Gardena Cinema, which is a theater I haven't been out to yet. Both of these are theaters, like revival theaters I haven't been out to yet. And this is The Golem, a German silent film based on Jewish folklore. The Golem is this kind of mythic, almost superhero, like made out of clay that comes to life. And so they're showing that on April 11th. And then the other one is kind of I think of as probably more known, is the Hitchcock film The Lodger.
Yeah.
And this just shows at the Old Town Music Hall, which has this like giant organ.
Yeah, they have a live organist that
Yeah.
plays along. I mean, for me, I kind of would like to see The Lodger with the live organist, but like part of me, because Gardena Cinema is like family run, like it's a big. If you get a chance to go there, definitely go there. It's a big, like I think it's a 700 seat theater.
Oh, wow,
It's like
yeah.
an old movie house.
Yeah.
And like they're doing their best to keep it running. So like I think just because of like support and keeping something, keeping that theater alive, go see On the Golem there.
Yeah. Okay, and here's 2 at Whammy Analog, where we've shot with before, and love that spot. And so they have a micro cinema in their VHS store, and they have this series that I love a lot called Stuck on VHS, which is movies that never got like a DVD release.
Yeah, it's funny because like those are just like some of them are just going to be lost in time, and like that's it, unfortunately.
Yeah, and so these 2, one is the first one showing early April is from 1986, an Eric Roberts and Beverly D'Angelo erotic noir thriller called Slow Burn. Have you ever heard of that one?
I think I've heard of it. I've not seen it.
Yeah, it's like sun-drenched Palm Springs. The director is Matthew Chapman, but that sounds pretty fun and like kind of like an ideal VHS one. And then the other one later in the month in this series is called Watched from 1974, director John Parsons. This is kind of a druggy cinema is what it's a little bit described as part of. And it stars Stacy Keach. And he's being surveilled both like in public and private, like 24/7. It's kind of a surveillance movie at the time, and they're showing it on VHS. So, like, I'm both interested. Does something on VHS, like a screening, sound interesting to you?
I mean, for me, the only time I want to watch something that's on VHS is if it's something that's the only way you can see it.
Yeah.
For me personally.
Yeah.
And if both those things are stuck on VHS, then that's the way you have to watch them.
So if you had to pick one, Slow Burn or Watch, what do you think would get you
I would do
out?
Watch because I like Stacy Keach a lot.
Okay, nice. And then this is another venue. Have you heard of this new venue in Hollywood, the Eastwood?
I've seen it pop up. I don't really know much about it as of right now.
Yeah, I think they're known as doing like stage productions, but they're also showing movies a few times a week now. And so these are 3 of their April screenings. So you have The Toxic Avenger from 1984, Trey Parker's Cannibal the Musical, and Argento's Tenebrae from 82. Have you seen all of those?
I've seen all 3 of them. Like, personal bias, I think Tenebrae is one of the best, like, it's one of the best Argento movies.
Okay.
It's one of the best, like, giallo films, even though it's more of the kind of meadow giallo. Like, it's kind of hard because it's like I'm also not the biggest Troma stan.
Yeah.
Like, I have a soft spot for the first Toxic Avenger. I think Cannibal Musical was a great way to see how, like, Trey Parker and Matt Stone kind of eventually became the guys that made South Park. And it's a really ambitious, like, DIY musical.
Right. And just that they've had this musical like interest and yearning from like the beginning,
And just kept on doing it. Like, I mean, just for personal bias, I'm gonna go Tenebrae.
Okay. Okay, and here's two double features at the New Bev, and both of these caught my eye. So the first one is 2 films from 1985, both with Rosanna Arquette. The first is Scorsese's After Hours, and then the second is Susan Seidelman's Desperately Seeking Susan with Madonna as the co-star. And then the other one is an early Spielberg double feature, Duel and Sugarland Express. Both like very, Duel obviously fully road movie, and Sugarland Express a lot is on the road.
So that's a tough one because that's a good early Spielberg double feature. Like, Duel being started as a TV movie, but they have a theatrical cut. Sugarland Express, greatly underrated, underseen in a lot of ways. But then, like, After Hours is my favorite Scorsese movie, and
I do like that pairing of After Hours and Desperately Seeking Susan.
No, I think it's a great.
Really
I think
fun.
they're both solid double features, which is what you kind of want out of a double feature. It's kind of like there's a couple ways you can do double feature. You can do true A picture, B picture, or you can do a thematic one, and both of these are thematic.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's a tough call for that one. Go see Sugarland Express. Like, After Hours plays a lot around town anyway. Go see Sugarland on 35 at the New Bev.
Yeah. Last one I was interested too, because this theater down in Orange County, you've been programming at the Frida.
Yes.
Some. And they have a big Tarkovsky retrospective coming up in April. They're showing 7 films, and I think he's always a name that gets me because those films, I do find them more difficult just watching at home versus like getting out to a theater does do something. So I'm both interested, like, how's your experience been with the Frida, and then whether does Tarkovsky do something for you?
I like Tarkovsky. I love going down the free. Like Trevor, who's their main programmer, who invited me. I basically do a bi-monthly residency there, so once every other month I do the screenings there. It's a great theater. It's a terrible drive going down from LA in rush hour, but I think it's worth it because, like, you know, another independent cinema, nonprofit, just like the American Cinematheque, and they do really great work, and they've built a really great audience, a really young audience too. I'd say they skew younger than like in LA.
Oh, wow.
But like, I give them props because they're showing a lot of the repertory stuff, and like, they do well with their art house stuff.
Do you have your next screening there planned, or?
It's going to be in May. I'm waiting for the final confirmation, mostly because they're going to be able to do 35 millimeters soon.
Oh, okay.
So just waiting on that, and like whatever I do is going to be on 35 down there.
Well, Jim, thanks so much for joining us. Look forward to your screening of Something Weird here tonight that we get to hang around for. And,
Excellent.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, man. Absolute pleasure.
What movie are you here to see?
Actually, funny enough, I am here to see Something Weird, and then at 10 p.m. they are playing this other movie called If later tonight. So doing a double feature tonight.
Impressive, an American Cinematheque double feature.
Oh, yeah.
Of your own making.
Yes.